Hi everyone, this is Gorka Etxebarrieta and Nahia Idoiaga Mondragon. Both of us are professor at the Faculty of Education at the University of the Basque Country, and we are here today to present our paper, which is Leisure Time as a Facilitator for Social and Educational Inclusion of Migrants, Inclusive Methodologies and Resources for Non-Formal Education. Education through leisure time is a tool and a methodology of great impact on non-formal education, especially from the perspective of social education. In this presentation, we will explain how different practices are being carried out in this field at the European level to foster the social and educational inclusion of migrants and refugees. The social inclusion of migrants and refugees is one of the key challenges of our contemporary society. In fact, an effective process for the inclusion of migrants and refugees could be represented by fostering a full and equal participation in all social contexts, including non-formal education within their country or society of arrival. This article presents a description and analysis of a number of best practices for social, educational, and cultural inclusion of migrants and refugees in leisure and free time, carried out by different actors and institutions within the European community, which were partners of an Erasmus Plus project named Inclusion. Inclusion is an international project aimed at promoting education, training, and inclusion for young people, testing the possibilities offered by non-formal education in the creation of methods and tools for social inclusion, also giving rise to new training programs, methodologies, and to a new discourse on the subject as a whole. The project gathers 6 organizations from 4 different countries: the Basque Country, the Slovak Republic, Portugal, and Italy, with experience in the field of inclusion through leisure and free time, in non-formal education with young people, but also in the systematization of methods and training in this area. The objectives of the project were 4. The first was to promote the field of education and leisure time as a space for social inclusion. Second was to train youth leaders and young people to foster initiative to incorporate competencies, values, capacities, and methodologies that promote social inclusion through education and leisure time. A third was to adapt youth and educational programs to new challenges, and in particular to work with migrants and refugees. And the fourth and final was to map best practices, methodologies, and training activities to promote social inclusion through non-formal education. Based on the theoretical framework previously explored, our inclusion project mapped a number of best educational practices, methodologies, and training activities to promote processes of inclusion with young migrants and refugees. Within our research, local seminars were carried out in each of the countries involved in the partnership to identify the diverse needs and challenges, and thus detect, study, and collect a number of best practices to foster the inclusion of refugees and migrants. The result of the local experiences were then shared at the European level by presenting them in the various national meetings that were held by the partners involved. The sample was composed of 14 informants, which were local institutions who coordinated a set and selected project and best practices, as you can see in table 1. And then these best practices designed and carried out for and with migrants and refugees in the field of leisure and free time were collected through a qualitative methodology based on semi-structured interviews. Of 14 best practices were chosen for analysis. 6 were from the Basque Country, 3 from Portugal, 3 from Slovakia, and 2 were from Italy. The following analysis identifies some common keys aspects to foster the inclusion processes of migrants and refugees through educational, leisure, and free time activities. The selected best practices seek the educational, social, and cultural inclusion of refugees and migrants who arrived in European Union for different reasons, including economic migration, wars, and others. These best practices gathered in this study are based on a number of innovative educational and social projects that provide resources and train stakeholders working in the field to achieve a number of competencies and skills. And this allowed the implementation of protocols for intervention that foster the inclusion of migrants and refugees through educational, leisure, and free time. Actually, this research reinforces the protective factors of leisure and educational as an educational tool applicable to the well-being of migrants. Among the meaningful benefits derived from educational leisure time, the following should be mentioned: social support, friendship, social acceptance, and the creation of educational social spaces and events. And it is this important to conclude emphasizing that the present project was considered to make the population aware of the social and political problematic on social, educational, and cultural inclusion of migrants and refugees. The present study also seeks the creation of a new inclusive culture from the perspective of social education, working through the awakening of negative stereotypes and fostering inclusive attitudes and values. So this was our presentation. Thank you very much for listening and have a nice day.